Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about a great indie tactics RPG from Sinister Games. Together in Battle is leaving early access today, with the full release available by the time you see this video. Now if you haven't seen my previous coverage of this title, Together in Battle is a tactics RPG built in a unique world where telepathy and telekinesis replace the typical magic seen in many RPGs. In the game, you are a telepath on a mission to the land of Dese to recruit fighters from the gladiatorial arena to help free your homeland from the evil Vibra mining company. Along the way, not only will you recruit a team of fighters to conquer the arena, but you'll also be caught up in a conspiracy that turns the nation of Dese upside down and provides an interesting narrative where your choices can lead to different endings. Before we jump into the details though, I want to quickly thank the developer for the review code. So with that done, let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with covering what makes this title unique among TRPGs. Together in Battle mixes procedural generation with set-piece battles to create a good mix of the volume and variety of procedural generation with the often more interesting and curated experience of handcrafted levels. When fighting in most arena matches, the opponents and maps are procedurally generated to create variety in each playthrough with these usually smaller, quicker battles. However, the various league qualifier matches that move you up to more challenging arenas and opponents, and the mini story event battles, are set-piece battles with handcrafted maps that can often present unique challenges and opportunities. This mix of handcrafted levels and procedurally generated ones help keep things from getting stale, as can happen in many games featuring procedural generation. The next thing that really stands out to me about Together in Battle is the sheer magnitude of variety in the type of classes, class combos, and team builds that you can have, and how team composition can lead to a completely different playthrough on a second or third run at the game. Each time you go to recruit characters, including the very beginning of the game randomly generates 12 different characters of varying classes, stats, and special modifiers, like poor circulation that makes them more vulnerable to cold-based attacks, or sharp-eyed that gives them increased accuracy. Each playthrough will provide you with your own favorites, and these may not even be of the same class as your favorites in a previous playthrough. Then there are all the events that can happen, some random so they can happen at different times during a playthrough, and others that are tied to the story. These events can pop up at any time, and many can be undertaken or left alone, though doing so may have you miss out on something useful. For instance, a merchant can approach you and tell you of bandits attacking traders on the road. If you agree to hunt the bandits down, this will allow trade to prosper and unlock stronger weapons and armor in the game's shop. Other events will open up the possibility of making certain races other than humans show up more often at the recruiter. These events also keep you on your toes, as they can pop up right before or right after a big battle in the arena, challenging you to keep your fighters in good shape as much as possible, or even hiring one or two more than you normally need, just in case you need backups. This then moves us into the resource management side of the game, which also is somewhat unique in the genre. You see, you are running a gladiatorial business, and as such, you have to pay your gladiators, provide them with food and equipment, and manage their performance in battle so that they are around for more battles in the future. In order to do all this, you need aura, which is the game's currency, and can be earned through various means, such as the obvious one, winning in the arena, but also by hiring out your fighters as day laborers or caravan guards, or even by trying your hand at Cyclash, which is a strategy card game built into Together in Battle. These various options make earning needed cash less of a hassle than it used to be if you played earlier versions of the game. However, the game also features several different difficulties that can make resource management less of a challenge and allow you to focus more on just combat if you prefer. But back to more on the resource management side of things, weapons also have durability that decreases each time they are used. Now, I know durability can be a sticking point for a lot of people in RPGs, but as far as durability systems go in Together in Battle, this one isn't overbearing as some of those others can be. Purchasing new weapons in the shop is relatively cheap, and as you naturally buy better weapons as you level up your team, those new better weapons usually have much higher durability. I've only had a weapon break on me in battle once, and thankfully that character had a backup, so it was no big deal. However, this durability system makes getting unique unbreakable weapons all the more exciting, as happened when my favorite Cavalier ran home to get his family weapon. This unique weapon came with the ability to push every time it's used, which comes in super handy for doing extra damage to enemies behind the enemy that you're actually attacking. Now, aside from your other resources though, you will also need to manage your time, as you can only do so much each day. Doing things like fighting in the arena or following main story beats will take a whole day, while visiting the shop or trainer will only take half of your day. And since I mentioned the trainer, let's take a quick aside and talk about training and retraining your fighters. At the trainer, you can train up specific stats for a small cost in gold, and that fighter being out of the party for a day or two, or you can retrain a fighter into an entirely new class for more gold and more time away. Retraining into a new class will allow the fighter to keep all of their current moves and masteries from their current class while switching over to the new class. They will now only learn new skills from their new class, but this allows you to say level up a tanking class a bit before switching them over to a healer class. Now you can have a healer that can take a few hits and even hit back while also still being able to heal his allies. In fact, there are quite a few interesting and powerful combinations you could create with this system. Now let's move on to camp and character interactions. At the end of each day, you and your fighters return to camp where you have several options, mostly related to managing the morale of your fighters. You can give everyone free reign and they will interact randomly with each other, having conversations, cleaning camp, or resting, and these actions can lead to increases or decreases in individual morale, as well as friendships and even romances among your fighters. Then you can hold one-on-one meetings to give fighters orders, bonuses, or vacations, which helps with their morale. You can hold group trainings to gain XP, or you can hold a gathering and have a team meal to boost everyone's morale. Having good morale can give your fighters bonuses to their stats, and having bad morale can lead them to up and quitting the team. Now let's move over into the actual combat and talk about that for a bit. For anyone who's played tactics RPGs, you know the basics. However, what makes Together in Battle unique is its heavy use of terrain and abilities that take advantage of it. For instance, sometimes the best way to handle an enemy is to throw them in the water for some damage and a lost turn, or maybe into the lava, or even into a bottomless pit. Many character abilities, especially those of telekinetics, can push or pull enemies over multiple spaces and into various hazards, or even their buddies, making them both take damage. Of course, enemies can do this to you too, so positioning matters more so than in some other tactics games. The good old backstab is here as well, so moving behind enemies for extra damage can help bring victory faster, but of course you need to watch your own back too. Aside from terrain and forced movement though, there are also engineers that can build bridges and barricades, spriggets and shadowlings that can fly, and many other classes and abilities that can be used to formulate unique, and I'm sure for the optimizers among us, brokenly powerful strategies. One of my favorite classes right now is the Cavalier, as they have a charge attack that can not only damage and stun enemies, but also pushes them back a space. Careful use of a Cavalier can keep a dangerous foe stunned while doing massive damage to him and any of his adjacent friends. Of course, shoving people into things never gets old. So ultimately, Together in Battle is a great tactics game from a solo developer. I think the mix of the arena story of rising up the ranks mixed with the more traditional campaign story does a good job of keeping things interesting as you play through, and each playthrough is varied enough to give the game at least a second playthrough of replayability, though that could be many more. The gameplay itself is my favorite part, and I think the wide variety of options in both characters and classes you recruit, along with the different ways you can manipulate terrain to your favor, keep combat interesting and engaging. Remember to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, then watch this video, because you know you're bored and you're looking for new games, so check this one out. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and keep on gaming.